I'm Cynthia Edul. I'm from Argentina. I live in Buenos Aires. I was born and raised in Buenos Aires. And I am a playwright and a fiction writer. And also I work as a lecturer in the university and direct a residency of Latin American and Spanish playwrights in Buenos Aires. Regarding writing, I write theater and novels, like fiction novels. I think there are a lot of good things to be a writer in Argentina. First, the tradition of literature in Argentina and theater also, it's like a kind of a big important country in culture. And it's a really, for me, important country in the tradition of literature. And that tradition is very interesting because it's not a tradition that is stiff, but on the opposite, we had like a kind of system Borges created that is more like, okay, to break the boundaries of the canon literature, or rebuild it, and I think from that moment, for a writer, it's like there's a big field, to explore, and I think it's that freedom. It's something that you could really enjoy or improve for your writing. It's like how to position yourself in that, how to read, and also the possibility to have a so productive literature, where there's an enormous market, but the market, not the market of the bestsellers, the market of the real of the literature that we care about. So there's an interest in for literature too. So I think in those sense, to be a writer, it's really interesting because you have a lot of things to, to fool yourself with, to eat, to take from that. The worst thing, it's of course like I don't know. It's I don't think if it's a worst thing because there's no censorship. There's no It's like so. I don't know. There's more like the kind of, and sometimes this kind of feels tends to be a little endogamic, And sometimes the isolation of the country, like it's really in the south, and sometimes too, it's a peripheral country already. So that dialogue that sometimes is fluid with the other, centers of cultural production. Sometimes it's not, and when it's not, it tends to be they feel a little endogamic, and I think that could be like a negative feature, but I don't think it's. I think it's if you have a kind of to see the big picture, you're going to have for me, a very positive one. The hybrid culture we have, It's like that kind of, it's a country that was built up for immigrants in a way, in a big tension with the elites, intellectual and power elites. There's it's a country that it's always trying to make a cultural bridge with Europe, but at the same time it's a Latin American country. So that sometimes is a fluid thing, sometimes it's tension, sometimes it's fights, It's strong. It's never a stop, It's like, and I think that at the end, I don't know if I can live without it. It's like and I think that sometimes it's a feature that I don't like of my country, but at the same time, it's what I love of it. It's like a kind of that passion and in the everyday life. What drive me writing was more like I started my career as an actress when I was really young, like 14 years old. So that's my relationship with theater. Like I started I was an actress, and at the same time, when I was 18, I started the BA in literature in the University of Buenos Aires, and everything changed in that moment. When I started to study literature, I started to abandon acting, but at the same time, I started to produce theater like a playwright, and from playwright, I moved to novel, and I go back, and I work in both fields. I think what drives me writing is a relationship with experience, that try to rebuild in writing the experience of the the relationship with, I say it sometimes, the real, that to try to work with that. That's what drives me writing for the first time was a kind of autobiographical sequence that I develop in different place and in a novel, rebuilding, that it's not it's fiction in a way, but it's really rebuilt from some experience of my biography and the biography of my family and my father. So that was the first, door I opened, and then of course I discovered the relationship that language has with experience and all that. Issue literature and theater works with. So, but I think that's the core of the first core I discovered, and was where from writing started to came. I read a lot, basically, and also as I teach, it's like, for me, reading is like a kind of everyday work. So I try to read everything I can. I read a lot of Latin American and Argentinian literature because it's the field where I work, but at the same time I try to read like all the, contemporary literature. I am really into contemporary, or try to be really into contemporary literature. I read a lot also philosophy and essays, and sometimes academical works too, in order to know the discussion, where is the discussion going in the moment. So I work, and also for me it's with theater, for example, I go to more than 3 times a week to the theater, or 4 times sometimes. So it's like a kind of also another dialogue with a kind of another kind of writing, because it's, of course it's not the same, but it's so I have it's an like important habit reading. I read almost more novels and short, and then short stories, but I am like a kind of reader of novels a lot, I think about some writers. I don't know if they are so translated for me. One is Fogwill, who is for me one of the most important Argentinian writers. He died some years ago. He has a intense production, and also he was a kind of those writers that can discover new writers, And for me, Fogwill is a very important writer in my career also. One of his novels called The Sensitive Experience, La Experiencia Sensible. It was the novel that opened my first play. Also, he has a novel about the Falklands, Los Pichiciegos, and it's a kind of the reverse of the story of the war, in a really violent and in a really brilliant, way. And I think for me, he is the one that we have to communicate more. The state has to support arts, and the state has to support literature, and we have examples of that. We can see the countries that invest a lot in culture, like Germany and France, and what happened after with those cultures. It's like how they could develop. For example, in theater is something really important. What in Germany and France happened. And when the state supports the arts. So I think yes, we have examples that we can see as a fact, which was the result. So I think yes. I think in literature is that we should think about it. How for example, with kind of residencies are very important. Because it's to give to the writer a space, to work. So they can have the time, because sometimes the problem for writers is that they have to work so much that the time for writing is not so. Prizes are important too. Of course, everything has the negative side of everything, but I prefer to see it as the positive side, and I prefer to think that to help publishing, for example, publishing for emerging writers. Sometimes for emerging writers, it's not so easy to be published, So there are, for example, in Argentina, there used to be some prizes for new writers, so they can give you the money, so so you can or develop or more your writing, or to find those kind of how to improve the field. We have to see where are the lacks, and try to see there. But I think yes, I'm totally sure states has to support literature. It's a fantastic country. Also, I'm a lover of American literature. Argentina is a kind of lover of American literature for us. Like the writers of the first part of the century, 20th century, was like Faulkner, Hemingway, Fitzgerald, or a lot of them. It's like. But I am really like in literature. I was always like a reader of American literature. So, and at the same time, I think this system of universities is fantastic for me. I can't believe the kind of space research, like the tools for your research they give you. I think that's something really special that define American, and so I was really happy when I saw Iowa University and the kind of things we can do. And also Iowa is a literature city where you go to the cafes and there are people writing, and then there's readings every day. And there, it's like a kind of, it's a writer's city. And I was so fascinated with that I'm enjoying every day. I celebrate it, and I think when I'm going to be in Buenos Aires, I will cry when I remember a lot of things of here. I'm Cynthia Edul. I'm from Argentina. I live in Buenos Aires. I was born and raised in Buenos Aires. And I am a playwright and a fiction writer. And I think from that moment, for a writer, it's like there's a big field, to explore, and I think it's that freedom. It's something that you could really enjoy or improve for your writing. It's how to position yourself in that, how to read, and also the possibility to have a so productive literature, where there's an enormous market, but the market not Argentina, and theater also, it's like a kind of a big important country in culture, and it's a really for me important country in the tradition of literature. And that tradition is very interesting because it's not a tradition that is stiff, but on the opposite. We had like a kind of system Borges created that is more like, okay, to break the boundaries of the canon literature, or rebuild it, and also I work as a lecturer in the university, and direct a kind residency of Latin American and Spanish playwrights in Buenos Aires. Regarding writing, I write theater and novels, like fiction novels. I think there are a lot of good things to be a writer in Argentina. First, the tradition of literature in Argentina, the market of the bestsellers, the market of the literature that we care about. So there's an interest in for literature too. So I think in those sense, to be a writer, it's really interesting because you have a lot of things to to fool yourself with, to eat, to take from that. The worst thing, it's of course like I don't know.